What is a cybersecurity engineer? In this video, you're going to learn about the cybersecurity engineer job role in cybersecurity. So you'll learn an overview of this job. You'll learn about different job titles or what you might see it listed on different job boards, or like LinkedIn, for example. You'll learn about the different job responsibilities you might do, average salary, compensation, different tools you might use, as well as do you need college degrees or certifications. So what is a cybersecurity engineer? Well, essentially, this is going to be someone that's going to design, develop, and also help to maintain different security systems as well as the technology, so things like applications as well, to help protect that organization's overall security posture. Now, you might be asking, well, what's the difference between a cybersecurity engineer and a cybersecurity analyst? The biggest difference between the two roles, and again, it's going to depend on where you work at, but the biggest difference generally between the two roles is an analyst is more of detection of, hey, here's the issues. Oh no, the world's ending, kind of like the Chicken Little. And then the engineer is more of like, okay, here's all the problems and here's the architecture of how we're going to fix them. So engineer, more architecture. So like if you want to build the building, and the analyst is more like, oh, this board, or the bricks falling off the building, or this window fell out, or these things are going wrong, right? So analyst versus engineer. Analyst is kind of detecting those things that might be breaking. Engineer is more of like, let's architect a solution on that. And as part of that, as an engineer, you're also going to be responsible for identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities in architecture, and then identifying different security controls that can be put in place to help mitigate those particular risks. So it's all a part of that secure architecture that you'll be helping to design. So what are some of the different types of job titles? So I've seen it as product security engineer. Now, this is where you would focus more on a specific product and working with the software development team around the security of that product or a portfolio of products at a company. There's the traditional security engineer. That's more of what we would consider that general cybersecurity engineer. And that's where you'll work with a variety of different tools, your architect executions kind of across the organization's network, the applications, etc. The architect, cybersecurity infrastructure engineer, operations engineer, platform engineer. Again, these job titles just kind of vary based on what you might be doing. There's also things like application security engineer, endpoint security engineer, etc. Now, again, as usual, below this video in the description, you're going to see a listing of different job titles so you can check it out, because some companies have some weird job titles, but this may be the actual role. So always look at the job description to see the skills they're actually looking for. So speaking of job descriptions and stuff, what are some of the responsibilities you might actually do as a security engineer? Well, of course, I mentioned designing, implementing, maintaining the security, different systems, technologies. So things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and prevention systems, encryption. Basically, you architect it to say, this is where we're going to put these things on the network or on a host system to help protect the organization against attack. You'll work to identify with other teams any relevant threats or vulnerabilities, and then also look to identify where can we put security controls to help mitigate those issues. You'll be involved in security assessments. You may not actually do them yourself, but you'll be involved in that process. Then again, that depends on the organization, but the whole goal there is to identify vulnerabilities, potential areas of risk, and potential exploitable vulnerabilities to then develop security solutions to help mitigate those before the bad people get to them. You'll also usually be involved in incident response, and that's more on the recovery side of, okay, this is everything that went wrong. Here's what we've learned. And then you come in and you say, all right, here's how we're going to fix it all, right? Here's how we're going to architect it to moving forward. You will be involved in things like training and education across stakeholders as well, specifically around the architecture, especially if you're trying to go for budget or your manager is trying to go for more budget because your solution requires certain things. You need to be prepared to talk those numbers of, okay, here's the cost of us not doing this, right? So for example, here's the cost of us not implementing this firewall security control right here. And let's say the firewall, let's just say it costs $20,000. It's a cheap firewall. So we can pay $20,000, or the cost of not doing this is $250,000. When you approach it like that and you have that approach, senior leadership's going to say, okay, well, we're going to pay that $20,000 because otherwise we would have to pay $250,000 or potentially pay $250,000. So it's all about the numbers for them. So if you do work in a cybersecurity engineer role, be sure to always tie everything back you're doing to actual financials with the organization, and you'll find you become a lot more successful. Now, on top of all these things, as part of your architecting of solutions, you also need to work with teams like the risk management team and privacy analysts, GRC analysts, etc. and ensure that what you're designing is compliant with different government or industry regulations, standards, best practices, etc. So what about the money? Can you actually make money here? Well, in the US, generally speaking, most cybersecurity engineers are going to start out around 75, 80,000 a year, sometimes 90,000 or more. Really depends on your skill set. And that can go up to 150 plus thousand per year in the US. UK, 30,000 to 60,000 pounds. In India, 500,000 to 1.2 million rupees. Again, keep in mind, these are base salaries. I know people that have worked in cybersecurity engineer roles starting out fresh from college and getting an associate degree. And the company can only afford to pay them like 70,000 a year, but they're able to negotiate and get like not a new car, but like a used car, get a sign-on bonus, get extra vacation time, whatever. So when you go to negotiate your salary, you don't have to lock yourself into certain numbers. If you are flexible a little bit, you can always try to negotiate something else. Like a lot of that depends on the size of the organization, but smaller organizations were usually a little more flexible with salary because they can't usually afford the high salaries. So you can usually get other stuff like a sign-on bonus or whatever. So just keep that in mind in your negotiation. Now, what kind of tools do you use? Again, this depends on the specific job title and function you're doing at an organization. But in general, intrusion detection prevention systems, different types of firewalls, vulnerability scanners. So basically your network security equipment, right? Data loss prevention tools, SIM tools, tools for encryption, tools for identity and access management. If you're actually involved in performing risk assessments or security assessments, you may also be using different pen testing tools like Metasploit or Maltego or Burp Suite, etc., or password crackers like John the Ripper. And then you usually also will be using some type of a compliance tool, just kind of scanning different systems and the network to make sure you're maintaining compliance with whatever regulations your organization is responsible for matching up against. So what about college degrees and all this stuff? Because I did mention that example of someone with a college degree. Well, good news is like the vast majority of cybersecurity roles, there's no college degree required. Can it help? Sure. Any education can help though. So if you don't have the money for college, don't fret. This is a role you can get in. There are some certs that you may want to take a look at. Again, certs are not required for this role. It's more about, can you actually do the job? Do you have the hands-on skills to come in and day one be able to do this stuff? And a lot of that revolves around network security, understanding systems, understanding host systems, understanding overall architecture. If you can learn to design things more securely, then you can be very good for this type of role. This is a very hands-on technical role. So if you don't want a technical role, this is not one for you. But if you're looking to certs, one of the de facto ones usually for entry level is the CompTIA Security Plus. Reason being that gives you a very broad base of security knowledge. Some other ones, as you grow your career, you might look at the CISSP. Again, once you've got 5 years experience, that's when that one's the most relevant to go take. Some people also get the CEH or the Certified Ethical Hacker. There's also the GAIAC Certified Incident Handler. If you want to focus more in the cloud space, especially if you're going to work as like a product security engineer, then the CCSP, which is a Cloud Security Practitioner cert, or the CCSK, which is the Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge. Those are good certs to take a look at just because they give you a broad knowledge of cloud security. And then the CISM, as you look to move into management, that's the Certified Information Security Manager. So that might be a relevant cert to get if you're looking to move from individual contributor up into more management levels. So just some key takeaways from this video. Cybersecurity engineers focus on building that security, so architecting that security for the organization. Pretty good compensation for this particular role. So if you're looking for a nice paying role that's got steady employment, this is a good one to take a look at. And like I mentioned before, very technical role. You really have to be good with your hands-on skills. So if you're not looking to build your hands-on skills or be technical, then this is definitely not a role that you should explore.